maybe if I could ask each person as quickly as they can to kind of give a summary outlook, maybe looking at the sort of holidays, Christmas this year. Essentially, are we going to see some ordering normality? I mean, a few of you touched on it saying no, but just to round off, what do you see by way of the ordering situation for the end of 2021, start of 2022? Jack?
I think actually we're going to see some ordering normalities in that ordering is going to be quite a bit bigger than what we would have expected. The problem is going to be a supply situation, not an ordering situation. I don't see how the supply chain and the pipeline gets filled. We're going to have retailers who are trying to figure out now how much of that increased business they'll keep, begin to look at their normal time to order it, which is next month for holiday business. And I don't see any difference in the ability of the producers to produce value-added goods, cooked shrimp, P&D shrimp for retail. So we're going to have a big problem.
Jim, on that note, is there any forecast, and this is a question for the container companies rather than you, I guess, but is there any forecast on normality in terms of container logistics?
No, I mean, nobody has any idea. And as I said, the shipping lines, may not necessarily be in a hurry to resolve these problems because they're doing exceptionally well out of it. In terms of supply, year to date for my company, we've had our strongest retail sales ever, and they continue. So retailers have been placing more orders and earlier, but they still, as Jeff said, they haven't placed the big ones. The big holiday orders are yet to come for many retailers. So when they go to place those orders, they're going to be finding that production may not be available and shipments may not be available for their holiday needs. So I think a lot of retailers, major food service distributors and others are going to come up short over the holidays. So there's going to be a shortage and very strong demand.
Sure. Thanks, John. Sophia, what's your sort of quick summary in terms of how Christmas 2021 looks?
I think Christmas is still a bit. There's still many factors that are, I think, in play that could contribute to the European demand. But in general, I think what I've said earlier that in the short term that there would be indeed increase in the demand from the food service sector, and the retail sector is also very much still active. But as I've mentioned, at the moment, European buyers are still very much into this risk assessment behavior. And see whether these problems with the sourcing countries are going to be resolved, and also within the countries, within Europe as well, how things will play out as well as more restaurants reopen, if the demand will be going to be there actually. Although in summer the expected demand will be there, and that it will be higher, and importers have now almost finished sourcing for the summer demand. So probably like after the summer, then once it has been consumed, that inventory, then there will be pickup for another demand, especially for the Northwestern Europe. And for Southern Europe, as I've mentioned earlier in my presentation, that like some processors are already looking into the preparations for Christmas. So it's there. It's there. The demand will be there, and with the ATQ still open for much of the shrimp in, especially for Southern Europe processing sector, then that will also be quite interesting to see how it. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, and finally, Gabriel, how do Ecuador's markets look kind of for the turn of the year 21-22?
Well, I think that, it it follows what everybody is saying. Ecuador is having a very strong demand from Europe, from USA, from China at the moment, and I think that's going to continue until the pipelines get full, and that doesn't seem to be anywhere near. And if we take a kind of summary of what we've been hearing, I think importers are afraid of what could still happen in the next few weeks, um, in from India's shipments being late, from the logistics from all over the world, not only India but from all over the world being late. So that will keep everybody on their toes and looking for product. And we are right in the middle of the world, so it's kind of the first place people call. It was the last place people called in the past because they knew that we were only doing head on, and we only had headless and value added for the leftovers. But that changed over 2020. Ecuador kind of proved a little bit that, hey, we want to do this, we want to give it a try, and we gave it a good hit. I mean, we've increased our value added production by over 50%. We went from 200 million to 300 million pounds towards the end of this year in peel production, and that's only the beginning. I mean, people are doing heavy investments here to widen and be able to peel more product and reach those markets that we preferred not to reach because of the way we grew. We grew into China with China's demand, and their product was head on. So we grew that portion of the factory, and we didn't grow the other portion of the factory. With today's recent events and last year's events, it pushed us towards something that we've been talking about for 8 years. That we needed to change the product form in Ecuador. We needed to be more versatile for when that moment came that China didn't want to buy from us. It's not that China doesn't want to buy from us right now. They want to, but now that we can peel and do the other products that COVID pushed us to do, right? Because during certain months, COVID had affected China to the point where their importing was almost shut down. They were decreasing their imports. They had inventories. They just weren't consuming it. So all of that changed our product form. That's what's giving us a better future in this market. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be feeling this ramp up or need for production from the States or from Europe, because we wouldn't have that product. We being the same shrimp, it's still, we can sell head on. We could sell head on in the past. If we were offering head on today, people wouldn't be taking it. That's not what people want and need right now. So the fact that we changed in the process of changing is what's making it interesting for Ecuador.
Sure.
And on a positive note, Ecuador, the export numbers from Ecuador you mentioned were up about 10%, 9.8%, the export numbers in one of the initial presentations. And that's true for the export data. But for actual production data, we are a little over 18% above what we were, production versus production data from last year. And that's simply because we're peeling more. That's where it is. It sounds like we're exporting 10% more. Yes, it's 10% more exports. But since they are peeled, it's actually 18%, 19% more production. So Ecuador is doing a great job at increasing their production. I mean, it's amazing how the farmers were able to adjust to these new prices of last year, which were terrible, and they had to adjust. So we became better at producing with the costs and more effective.
Yeah.
Sure.
Can I just add one question, if that's okay?
Yeah, sure.
Bill? Yeah. No, I was just wondering because in Ecuador, then you said that indeed, like you are catering to the US and Europe, but then the peeling is much more expensive there, and you have indeed said that you have changed your processing and your system just to cater to these new markets. My question is whether this kind of this catering to the US and Europe will be in the long term sustainable. If, for example, the Chinese demand picks up, is this something that you think that it's actually going to be in the long run uh, quite interesting for Ecuador, or will you go back to China just to supplying there, or how do you think that will play out?
Okay, I'm going to take it as a two-part question, and here's my take on this.
Mm,
The first part was the labor cost, and the
yeah,
second part is we will go back to China
yeah.
if of course the price doesn't work for us based on that labor cost. So
Mm,
the first part is the labor cost. The actual labor cost in a pound of peeled product that reaches the market out of the final $6, $5 per pound price is in Ecuador, the actual hand labor is about, I'd say, 25 to 30 cents.
mhm,
And maybe it's half or a little less than half in Asia, and some parts in Asia, not in all of them.
yeah,
So if we have 25 and they have half, that's let's say 12.5 to say there's a 12-cent difference per pound in the final product. That's the margin we're talking about. So that's not something that breaks a deal, especially when markets are short. When markets are short, there's nothing that breaks the deal. You mentioned it in your presentation. People want reliability
reliable.
before lack of supply.
Yeah,
So in that scenario, you forget about even the 12 cents. But in a normal scenario, are we willing to sacrifice the 12 cents? I think that yes. I think that in the current situation, with all the current restrictions that there are in China, we will sacrifice those 12 cents any day, because it's much more difficult to send a container 45 days over the ocean, go reach China, and then China saying, "Oh no, we found
yeah.
traces of COVID, or of somebody coughed on this."
They will send it back.
Or they
Yeah,
look around, hey, I don't know, I don't like this.
yeah.
Well,
May I chime in for a moment too?
I'm sorry.
May I say something?
Yep.
I think we're going to see 2021 as a watershed year for what we're talking about. We've been talking with Ecuador for 15 years about getting mechanized, getting into the marketplace that Vietnam and then India kind of took highly and
Yeah.
originally.
Hmm.
What we're seeing right now, and we're very involved in this, is I'm shopping for a lot of equipment right now. We've gone from the skepticism and more or less everybody in Ecuador that I dealt with saying, yeah, we need to do this. We need to address that market. We're going to do it soon. This year, with what happened in China, has opened the eyes and said, Ecuador is looking at it now and saying, there's no reason we can't have a big piece of this steady market, not the market that goes up and down, but the program business market, the supermarket business.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see that 12 cents, first of all, is negligible, and I think it's going to go away. And the second part of that is once the investment is made, and we're not just talking about shifting from hand peeling to going back to head on. Once the investment is made, the equipment's in place, people are going to run those plants. They're going to run that equipment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that would put us in a position where we haven't been ever as a supplier for a program business. And then that brings to a point of sometimes, and it was mentioned here, that there was a point in the year where Ecuador's prices were so low that everybody wanted to buy from Ecuador, and we increased our participation in Europe because our prices were so low. They were so low because we're not doing the program business. They were so low because in the program we're selling the next 2 weeks of product. We're not selling July.
Right.
Mm,
India's trying to sell August. That's the program business. That's the mentality we need to get into as Ecuadorians. We need to supply a constant program of X amount of pounds out of our total production need to be on a fixed program. That way, the amount of product on the daily, I want to say stock market price, or on the daily, what's the word is,
Spot market.
the spot market. That's what I wanted to say. The spot market price, that needs to be decreased. If there's less spot product available, there's less fluctuation, and everybody needs less fluctuation because we need this to be as stable as it can be. Of course, always supply and demand will bring it up and down, but spot market brings it spiking up and then it drops it immediately. And then when everybody loses money, everybody's upside down with their inventory. They bought what they didn't need, right? But if we get a large percentage of our production out of the spot market, this will be a nicer playing field for everyone.
And it hasn't been lost on the Ecuadorians that over the last year, people like me have bought hundreds of containers of very inexpensive Ecuador shrimp and sent them to China and Vietnam to be peeled. This is not lost on them. They're seeing it now.
Absolutely. And it still continues to happen. It happens now. It's happening right now with even these prices, which are much higher than before. It's still happening that shrimp is being sent to be peeled to shrimp plants in China. Out of that percentage of shrimp that goes to China, in the past, it was 97, 98% head on. And now it's borderline 85. It's 85, 80, 87. There's a lot of that shrimp that is headless shrimp that's going to be reprocessed either for local consumption or their exports, whatever it is they're using it for, I'm not sure, but it goes to their plants because the plants are the ones demanding it. So it's definitely a change and something that we are noticing and that we need to change. So rather than sending our product over there, and that does away with that 12 cents we were speaking of before.
Yeah. All right.
Just
Thanks, Gabriel.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry to interrupt, really, because this has all been really interesting. But yeah, I better let you all go back to your daily business. But no, thank you to all of our panelists for giving their time. It's been really interesting. And thanks again to our sponsors, Sunnyvale, who, again, having a sponsor allows us to make it free for everybody to watch. So thank you, everybody. Visit Undercurrent News to keep up with the shrimp news. And join us again at our next webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Neil, may I make one last comment because you had brought it up in some of what you sent me, is just on the marketplace, we may see a phenomenon that we saw several years ago when India ramped up so aggressively and didn't have the capacity to value add. We may find a divergent market over the next few months where headless shrimp is falling and value-added shrimp continues to climb. And that's something that is probably one of the most important factors that we need to be watching.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree.
All right.
That's something that Ecuador can produce a bunch of, and value-added we're very limited on. So the same.